Everyone loves a good Wild West movie, rolling plains, epic battles, and shootouts that really get the heart pounding. What's there not to love? The old American frontier always makes for a great film, and there have been some super memorable characters, some entirely fiction, and some based on real-life adventures. But there were some real people whose stories are as exciting as the films, and whose lives even crazier. The Wild West was an era of lawlessness. Rangers and sheriffs did their best to uphold the law and civilize this new land, but villainy and criminal activity was rife. It really was a golden age for outlaws. So we thought we'd compile a list of some of the most notorious outlaws of this era. So let's get straight into it. At number 5, we've got a guy who came to be known as a gentleman bandit. His outlaw name was Black Bart. Picture this. In the rugged terrain of the Wild West, dust swirling in the air as a stagecoach rumbles across the desolate landscape. But lurking in the shadows is a figure unlike any other. Black Bart wasn't your typical outlaw. No, sir. With a keen sense of style and a penchant for poetry, he stood out from the rest like a rose in a field of thorns. But don't let his refined appearance fool you, because underneath that dapper exterior beat the heart of a true bandit. What set Black Bart apart from other outlaws of his time was his unique calling card: poetry. That's right, instead of leaving behind a trail of destruction, Black Bart left behind verses penned with a flourish, taunting the lawmen who dared to chase him. But make no mistake, Black Bart was no mere wordsmith. He was a master of the stagecoach heist, pulling off daring robberies with precision and finesse. And despite numerous attempts by law enforcement to bring him to justice, Black Bart always seemed to slip through their fingers like smoke on the wind. Born in Norfolk, England in 1829 as Charles Bowles, he would move to Jefferson County, New York later in life. He served in the Civil War after trying out prospecting in the gold rush. Bowles would be seriously injured in the Battle of Vicksburg and be discharged from service. After his wartime exploits, he went back to prospecting, but at some point, someone from the Wells and Fargo Company did something that really annoyed him. In a letter to his wife, he told her he was going on a quest to exact revenge, and he disappeared. His wife never heard from him again. Thus his criminal career began. Bowles adopted the nickname Black Bart and proceeded to rob Wells Fargo stagecoaches at least 28 times across Northern California between 1875 and 1883, including a number of times along the historic Siskiyou Trail between California and Oregon. He only left 2 poems at the 4th and 5th robbery sites, but this came to be considered his signature and ensured his fame. Black Bart was quite successful as a highwayman, often taking in thousands of dollars a year. He hated horses and would always do his robberies on foot. He also never injured any of his victims. He carried a shotgun but never once pulled the trigger. An honorable highwayman if there ever was one. His crimes would eventually catch up with Bart, and like most of the people in his line of work, this witty, enigmatic highwayman would eventually be captured by law enforcement. After spending 6 years in jail, he would be released. Upon his release, a swarm of reporters questioned him. One asked if he was going back to his life of crime. Calmly and mischievously, and with a smile, he replied, "No, gentlemen, I'm through with crime." The Wells Fargo Company never stopped chasing him, which is why he never returned to his wife. On February 28, 1888, they finally lost his trail, and he vanished from society forever. Next up, we've got Jesse James, the original outlaw rock star. With his Robin Hood persona and daring heists, Jesse James captured the imagination of the American public like no other outlaw before him. With a quick draw and a devil-may-care attitude, Jesse James became the stuff of legend. His exploits recounted in dime novels and whispered around campfires from Missouri to California. But Jesse James wasn't just in it for the thrill of the chase. No, he had a score to settle with the powers that be. A vendetta against the establishment that drove him to become one of the most feared outlaws of his time. And he didn't ride alone. With his loyal gang of desperados, including his brother Frank James, Jesse terrorized the countryside, robbing banks, trains, and stagecoaches with ruthless efficiency. But Jesse James wasn't just a gunslinger. He was a master of disguise, often blending seamlessly into the crowd before striking with lightning speed and disappearing into the night. Born in Missouri in 1847, he spent his early life like Black Bart in the Civil War, where him and his company were accused of committing heinous war crimes against Union soldiers and civilians. After the war, the same group would rob banks, stagecoaches, and trains, and his fame would spread across the country. And yet, for all his notoriety, Jesse James remained a folk hero to many, a symbol of resistance against a corrupt and oppressive system that sought to tame the Wild West. But like all legends, Jesse James's story came to a bloody end. Betrayed by one of his own, he was gunned down in cold blood, his life cut short, but his legacy enduring for generations to come. At number 3, we've got the Apache chief and bane to Mexicans and Americans in the rugged expanse of the American Southwest, where the desert stretches as far as the eye can see. A figure emerged as both a symbol of resistance and an infamous outlaw. That figure was Geronimo. Born into the Bardoncoja band of the Apache tribe, Geronimo's early life was marked by turmoil and conflict as European settlers encroached upon Apache lands, pushing his people to the brink of extinction. His early life saw many battles against the occupiers of his land, but things took a turn when his family were slaughtered in a raid. This is when he really became an outlaw. But Geronimo was not one to back down in the face of adversity. From a young age, he proved himself a formidable warrior, leading daring raids against Mexican and American settlers alike. As tensions between the Apache and the U.S. government reached a boiling point, Geronimo emerged as a central figure in the Apache Wars, a series of bloody conflicts that would shape the course of American history. But Geronimo's resistance against the invasion of foreign powers came at a cost. Branded an outlaw by the U.S. government, he became a fugitive, pursued relentlessly by the cavalry across the unforgiving terrain of the Southwest. Yet, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Geronimo eluded capture time and time again, earning a reputation as one of the most elusive outlaws of the Wild West. And though Geronimo was eventually captured and forced to surrender, his spirit remained unbroken. He spent the rest of his life as a prisoner of war, and once said one of his biggest regrets in life was surrendering. But even in captivity, he continued to inspire hope and resistance among his people, refusing to be silenced by the forces that sought to conquer him. Now it's time to shine a spotlight on number 2. We've got the legendary Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This dynamic duo pulled off some of the most daring train robberies in history, earning them a spot on every lawman's most wanted list. Born Henry McCarty, but known far and wide as Billy the Kid, he earned his infamous moniker through a life filled with danger and adventure. From a young age, Billy was drawn to the outlaw life, making a name for himself as a gunslinger and cattle rustler. His life of crime started when he was only 14 and his mom died. He would start robbing from then on out, and as he traveled the country, his crimes only got worse and worse. His main moment of fame was during the Battle of Lincoln, a massive shootout between rival factions with Billy and his gang siding with one of them. This and many of his other exploits awarded Billy the Kid a bounty, and although he managed to evade capture for a while, he was finally caught. But he managed to escape. The 21-year-old and killer of many men finally met his demise when he wandered into his friend's house and found him being questioned by the sheriff. After a tense few seconds, the sheriff drew his gun a second quicker and shot Billy the Kid, killing him. But it wasn't just his skill with a gun that set Billy apart. It was his youthful charm and devil-may-care attitude that captured the imaginations of those around him. With his piercing gaze and cocky grin, he became a folk hero to many and a nightmare to lawmen. And oh, the tales they tell of Billy the Kid. From daring jailbreaks to narrow escapes, his exploits became the stuff of legend. recounted in dime novels and whispered around campfires from New Mexico to Texas. But amidst all the chaos and excitement of the Wild West, Billy the Kid was more than just an outlaw. He was a product of his time. A young man caught between the lawless frontier and the encroaching forces of civilization. Last but certainly not least, we've got notorious outlaw duo Bonnie and Clyde. These two Texas-born bandits rose to fame in the early 1900s. They were the most notorious outlaw couple of America at the time. With their hearts set on adventure and their guns blazing, they tore through the heartland like a whirlwind of chaos and excitement. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, two names that struck fear into the hearts of lawmen and admiration in the hearts of outlaws. Together, they embarked on a crime spree that spanned multiple states, robbing banks, gas stations, and grocery stores with ruthless efficiency. But Bonnie and Clyde weren't just in it for the money. Oh no, they were driven by something far more powerful. A love that knew no bounds and a desire for freedom that could not be tamed. With their trademark charm and devil-may-care attitude, Bonnie and Clyde became folk heroes to many. Their exploits recounted in newspapers and whispered about in hushed tones in every corner of the country. But make no mistake, behind the glamour and romance lurked a dark and violent reality. Bonnie and Clyde were cold-blooded killers, responsible for the deaths of numerous lawmen and innocent bystanders during their crime spree. Yet, even as the law closed in around them, Bonnie and Clyde remained defiant to the very end. They laughed in the face of danger, taunting their pursuers with daring escapes and narrow misses. But like all legends, their story came to a bloody end. At the young ages of 25 and 23, they were ambushed by law enforcement on a dusty road in Louisiana. Bonnie and Clyde met their fate in a hail of bullets, their bodies riddled with lead, but their names etched into the annals of history. So here's to Bonnie and Clyde, the infamous outlaw duo whose love knew no bounds and whose legacy will never be forgotten. They lived fast, died young, and left behind a tale of romance and rebellion that continues to captivate the hearts and minds of people around the world. What did you think of our list? Let us know if we missed anybody. And be sure to subscribe to Real History, Unreal Stories for more of history's craziest and most interesting true stories.